The next section of the colored pencil practice sheet has shading shapes, but it has you shading shapes using a specific color scheme, because when we work with our architecture project, a color scheme and not just any color. So the sphere needs to be shaded in using a monochromatic color scheme, the cube an analogous, the cone complementary color scheme, and the cylinder you can repeat one of these color schemes you choose using a new color. So for instance, if I want to use monochromatic again, I just want to pick a color different than the color I did for the first shape. A color plan for organizing colors according to their relationship to each other on the color wheel. Artwork that uses color. Our color choice is an important step in making artwork, and it sets the viewer of our work. Part of your planning process for this project will be choosing a color scheme for your work. Monochromatic means one color and all of its tints and shades. So in order to make a monochromatic color scheme, we would use one single color, like for instance green, like this example on the screen, black and white. Those are the only colors that were used to make this little drawing. It creates a strong unified effect, but you do have to think ahead to the message that one to your viewer about subject matter. So for instance, we have the little brother here, and the green makes him appear maybe yucky or silly. But if we imagine that same drawing using red instead of green, we sort of have a demonic or a little bit darker meaning, because red sets a different tone for the drawing than green. An analogous color scheme uses colors that sit side by side on the color wheel, and they typically have a common hue. So if I were to look at the color wheel, an analogous color scheme would be yellow-green and blue-green color wheel. I like to think of it like I'm really hungry and I'm going to grab 3 slices of usually 3 colors. So in the example on this colored pencil, it's violet, blue-violet, and blue, along with tints and shades, black. And remember that value is the most important part of artwork. So even though we're using color, we still need black and white. This ties work together through that linking common hue, so you get a unified effect, but more flexibility of color. Your third color scheme choice is a complementary. It's a pairing of 2 complementary colors. And remember, complementary colors are colors directly across from one another. This creates the strongest level of contrast in our artwork, as we get those complement each other in a piece of work, and it creates that clashing effect or double brightening. We also get the ability to mix these complementary colors together. So in the example, all of these brown tones that were used to shade the work were created just by mixing yellow and purple together. There's no other color that's been used. If your colors are super bright, you can create a sense of strong, like, visual vibration. Usually it's more likely to happen with complementary color, fluorescent kind of colors than the kind of colors we're using right now. So I'm going to shade in my sphere using monochromatic. So I'm going to use white, and I'm going to shade opposite when we worked with pencil. So when we worked in pencil, I left the highlight area of the paper, and we gradually got darker or more pressure as we worked our way into the shading. This is the opposite process. I'm using less pressure where I want it to be darker, because I have less of that white colored pencil to go down on my sheet and more of that black paper to show through. So this is step 1. So you can see I've basically shaded that sphere in just a white colored pencil and nothing else. Now I'm going to go back over of this with the color that I've chosen, which is green. And then I can go back and adjust and layer hues along with the shadow, the cast shadow on the piece of paper itself. You want to make sure that you're working to achieve smooth value, just worked in pencil. And we want to make sure that we're working in light layers so that the colored pencil doesn't get too dark too fast, removing our ability to continue shading through the process of layering the colored pencils. The cube, we're going to work with an analogous color scheme. I can add some white if I like, just to brighten things up underneath. I can do the same with a little bit of black. The sense of shadow over here. I'm going to use a little bit of black for the cast shadow on the piece of paper. Add that up here to my sphere drawing. So if I'm working with an analogous color scheme, remember analogous color scheme is when we're working three colors next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to use green, yellow green, and blue green, and I'm going to have to mix my colors together in order to achieve this. So for the green top, I'm going to start by adding the green right over the top of that first placed on my cube. I'm then going to place the yellow over the top of that. Nice bright yellow-green effect here on the. I'm working to shade with a analogous color. What I have to imagine is which of these three colors is lightest. So the yellow-green will be the lightest color, the green will be the middle color, and the blue-green will be the shadow color. So what that means over here is I'm going to into a blue-green color, and then I'll use cube as regular green. And like I said, we can always add a little bit of black if we want the effect to be a little more shaded. Then that third side will just be the regular green that the colored pencil will get. And continue to shade that in the green, brightening it up with a little bit of white underneath if I choose to do so. The cone is going to get shaded in using a complementary color scheme. So remember, complementary color when they're next to each other, but they shade each other or make each other less intense when we work with them. So if I'm working with red and green complementary colors, I want to know about which color do I want my cone to be, and I'm going to start there. So I'm going to build first the green portion of my cone. I want this to look like a green cone that I've shaded using the red. So you can see I can come back here with a little bit of white just to brighten up the side of the cone that would be the brightest. I'm then going to use the red on the shadowed side of the cone, overlapping the green and the red to make a shadowed effect. Putting less pressure on my green colored, red colored pencil. Move around my cone. And now I'm going to come back with more green over the top. And it will blend with that red, making a shadowed side without my using black, but I'm using that complementary. The cylinder, you may choose to use 3 shading methods, but you need to use a different color than you used the first time.